So hello, Angela. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to speak to you and find out a little bit more about your ethos in life, which is about living more by buying less.
Exactly. Yes. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm super chuffed to be here.
It's a pleasure. So can you tell me a little bit about how you've come to be this sort of spokesperson for living a decluttered life?
So we fell into it by accident. It's such a funny story. In 2008, we were moving house, and we had a house full of stuff that we just bought. It was the usual trappings. And I suddenly thought about this, everything that had to go into moving, the whole, the packing and the orchestrating and everything. And I just thought, I actually can't do this again. So I said to my wife, why don't we just sell everything and we'll move into a furnished apartment? And I was kind of half joking, half not. And she just went for it. So we thought, oh, okay, why not? And we'd never heard of minimalism or decluttering or whatever. It was just literally a decision that we made so that our lives could be easier. So we put everything on South Africa's version of eBay, which is Gumtree. And we sold at that point, I'd say 80 to 90%. Of what we owned. And it was such an amazing feeling. And it kind of snowballed from there. But that was our entry point.
Yeah, amazing. And since then you've done a TED Talk, and that's actually how I came across you. And the TED Talk has got nearly 1 million views.
Wow.
So why do you think it's become so popular?
I think I'm thinking back to it, and after the talk, people were saying that they were fascinated by how easy our lives sounded and how just happy and in the moment we were. And I think that really appealed to people that, the 3 main points that I made in that talk is that living with less allows you more money, more time and less stress. And those are still the 3 things that we appreciate most. And I think that's really what appealed to everyone in the audience, is that life could be so much simpler than it normally is, or that people make it to be. I think often we complicate things unnecessarily.
Definitely. Like all the contraptions that we have and like the machinery of our life that's meant to kind of be smoothing systems just become like more things that we need to be looking after. And also the more that we buy means like the more money we need to be making. So the more work we need to be doing. So the less time we're spending with our friends and family and doing the things that actually mean like something really, really to us.
Exactly. That's the whole point. That was the thing that we noticed first. Because we were in a lot of debt at the time, so we started on a plan to downsize our debt. But the first thing we noticed is how much time we had. So before, the weekends were spent cleaning the house, doing the garden, washing the cars, cleaning out the shed, like all that stuff that you have to do, all the maintenance things because you own stuff. And suddenly we realized, we've got a whole weekend and we can do whatever we want because we're not looking after those things anymore.
Yeah.
And it just suddenly, it opened up this whole world that we didn't even know existed really. We'd forgotten because it was just work Monday to Friday, do your chore things. And then the little bit of time that's left on the weekend, you Netflix or you go for drinks or whatever, just to really relax. And then that's sort of a hamster wheel of your life.
Yeah. I often laugh with my boyfriend because I bought a van a few years ago, but it's like an old 70s van. And I kind of fancied the idea of, having like a more simplified life and more of a van life. And as much as I love my van, we have like taken it, far, like we managed to get it to Italy and back, but it's also like a constant source of anxiety because it's so old, it's kind of falling apart. And sometimes I just think how ironic that this kind of supposed like freedom tool has actually just been a great expense for me.
Yes. Yeah, it often happens like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we call it, it's like a romantic notion.
Yeah.
You imagine yourself, you see the van and you think, you imagine yourself doing this and that. And I think that's how we get caught buying all these things, because you're in the shops and you see whatever it is, it's a blender or a pair of running shoes or a treadmill, and I have to get it because you imagine yourself getting fit or getting healthy or whatever. And then you get home and it's like, oh, I don't actually enjoy running, do I?
Yeah.
And I've just bought like these really expensive running shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not surprising though, because we're exposed to thousands of advertisements every single day who are selling us this idea that we need to acquire something in order for us to be happy, in order for us to basically become something that we're not, or to own something that we don't already have. And it's this kind of cycle. And I think maybe you've spoken about this as like a kind of, there's some chemical reaction or something that occurs that's kind of fueling this. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know the exact scientific term, but I know there's something activated in your brain. It's like almost you get this like this, you're on a mission and you're hunting for something, right? So you're in the shop and you get this like this buyer's high, because you almost, it's the same as if, an animal is hunting in the wild, to put it in a weird way. You're after something, but as soon as you get home, you realize it was just in that moment that you're after it. It dissipates as soon as you get home, and then buyer's remorse kicks in.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what it's called scientifically. There is a name for it, but I think part of that has been on this hedonistic treadmill where we constantly after the next best thing. And we do a meditation with a group, and one of the things that they talk about is something called I'll be happy when, the syndrome of I'll be happy when. And it's like they play a game with us. They'll say I'll be happy when, and you have to fill in, and it'll be like when I lose weight, when I get that job, when I get married, when I have kids. And the truth is, you're happy now. You like in this moment, you can always be happy. That's not to say you don't strive for things or have goals. Obviously you do. But when we realize that happiness is something inside us, not something external, life becomes so much easier and so much more fun, really.
I really appreciate you saying that, and I find that such a powerful thing to remember, even though it's kind of the antithesis of what is pummeled through mainstream media at us all the time. But because I mean, I guess at the core of meditation is this like ability to sit with what is, rather than to kind of be in like this productionist or consumerist way where we're trying to create something other than in order to be something other than where we are now. I just complicated the very beautiful way that you articulated that. So is meditation quite a fundamental part of this journey for you?
Yes, absolutely. And that was one of many doors that opened. I wrote a post once about it where I said that minimalism is a means to a beginning, not a means to an end, because people imagine they're going to declutter their home and then that's the end of it. But what we realized is that was just like the first step. It was like opening this magic door into a place we didn't even know might exist. And so once we had the free time, when we weren't bogged down with stuff anymore, then we started noticing other things. We became more interested in the environment. We transitioned to a plant-based diet. We started meditating. We started cleaning up our health, like going to gym and drinking less and, just really focusing on things that have value rather than just fun in the moment.
Yeah. EcoResolution. So this month, while we're looking at waste and consumerism, we're very interested in exploring like the psychological aspects of it, but then also like the systemic aspects of it as well. So like, this waste and consumerism crisis isn't because individuals, like people are inherently greedy or like inherently addicted to stuff. It's kind of more like we are reflecting the system of which we're a part of. So we're like brought up believing that like the way that we consume and produce is like inevitable, it's fair and it's just, and it's like the only way in which like the world can keep on running by just like growing and growing this economy. And which is just so bizarre because like obviously we don't want to have economic crashes. Obviously that would cause so much suffering for people. But at the same time, economic growth with finite resources also causes so much suffering and the degradation of all the ecosystems on which we rely. So yeah, it's very interesting as we been exploring waste and consumerism, really realizing how it connects so many parts of life together, in actually like a real critique of like a lot of the systems that we're part of, and then also looking towards the psychological implications of it as well, in that I'm never good enough. I need to have more, do more, which is kind of also a replication of that growth-based economy, but within ourselves.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think we, as humans, we don't stop to think that maybe there's not necessarily a better way, although like I do think better in some instances, but like we fail to consider that there are different options. We think we have to have a car, we have to have the corner office, we have to earn that amount of money and live in this neighborhood or whatever. And it's not necessarily true. I mean, we need to sort of go inside ourselves and see what we really want and what's important for us. And also, I think, honestly, we've reached a point now with the way things are going that we can't just think about ourselves anymore. We can't just say, well, I like eating meat, so I think that humans need to eat meat or whatever. We actually have to say, no, we need to stop that now because it's not good for the environment. We've kind of reached that tipping point, I think, where some things we don't really have a choice. We now have an obligation to step up and be a better human in whatever way.
I think that links as well, because some people, might just like, I think when we start to realize that what's happening to the environment is not separate to what's happening to humans, and that human rights and environmental justice is like inherently interconnected. And so what we're doing to the planet, we're just doing to ourselves, and like trying to shift that. But I think also, going back to meditation, I think that's why some practices such as meditation, and it might not be meditation, it might be like rock climbing or walking or community work or gardening, but something that kind of takes us out of that way. It's like something that allows us to start to unlearn these things which we have like unconsciously sort of like that we hold on to so much, because since starting EcoResolution, the way that I consume has definitely changed, but I slip up, often as well. And I have that like effort kind of moment sometimes. And I think, that those moments are, a reflection of, well, like I'm human and I'm going to make mistakes, but also, it's when I'm not like really fully established in that headspace, which is why I find the meditation and whatever those practices are help me to be established there. So I feel more resilient to what mainstream media is telling me to buy, because I'm not good enough if I don't buy it kind of thing.
Yeah, it's true. Meditation really allows you just to be with yourself, and then suddenly what the media is putting in your face doesn't really matter as much, because you're feeling comfortable and you're feeling confident in your own skin. So you're not looking elsewhere for approval. You can just say, I'm okay in this moment. I'm doing my best with the tools that I have and the know-how that I have. And for now, that's fine. And like you say, you make mistakes. We still make mistakes all the time. We slip up in ways, and we're human. But I think what we have to remember is that you get up and you carry on and you try harder the next day. And there's no point in beating yourself up.
Totally. And do you have any kind of tips for people who are wanting to declutter their life and start to adopt more of a minimalist approach to life?
I would say to start by really just looking around your house and being honest with yourself and finding the things that you don't use, and then say, well, how long haven't I used this for? How long haven't I looked at it or whatever? And then just start slowly getting rid of things that way. A lot of times we hold on to things for specific reasons. Either it's sentimental, or it's because we think we'll need it someday, or it's because we made an impulse buy and now we're feeling bad. So you bought a blender for, 1,000 Rand or 2,000 Rand, and you're just not that person who makes smoothies. but you're keeping it now because, that's a lot of money, right? So those are most of the reasons that people hold on to things. So once you start addressing it, you're not going to get the money back, let's face it. So let go of the blender because it's just standing there as a reminder of a mistake you made. You can donate it, you can sell it or whatever. And slowly but surely getting rid of the things that you don't use will clear up space for other things in your life. And I think another thing, if you are getting rid of stuff, a lot of people, they don't want to get rid of their things, but if you think of how you could perhaps help someone else, then it'll help you to let go of that item because, there's so many people who need things, let's face it. So, that's another good approach to letting go.
Yeah, because as this movement kind of has been growing with minimalism and then also like the Netflix series with Marie Kondo, there is a dark side to this as well, in that people are kind of just like chucking things away and that kind of that worries me. I know Marie Kondo says, you hold something and if it doesn't spark joy, then give it a blessing and get rid of it. But there is no way in our throwaway society. And I worry sometimes that so that, obviously ideally we'd be then taking the things that we're no longer using and no longer need and then giving them, kind of hang on, let's see out my words, giving them away while supporting alternative kind of sharing economies and that kind of thing. But yeah, I worry that people are taking this as just meaning like chuck out your stuff and buy another one when you need it next time.
Yeah, it's exactly. That is something that people really need to consider. There are a lot of sites coming up now, and I really hope they take off where it's a sort of a lend-in community. Where you can put on the site, like you've got something that you have a bicycle and then I'll come along and borrow it from you for a certain amount of money. But in terms of what you're saying, it is tricky. And I think it's just people have to educate themselves, I guess, to think we're not suggesting you get rid of everything and live with just your 2 cups like we did at one point for a fun experiment. But really just be deliberate about the things that you want in your life. So you can still have things. Minimalism doesn't mean don't have anything, but have the things that have value to you and that you actually use, and also be mindful about the things that you buy. So instead of buying from fast fashion outlets, you buying from a company like, say, Patagonia, for example, that does a lot with the environment and giving back. And it's a bigger price tag, but you're going to have that jacket or that whatever for the next 10 years. So it's really about, at the same time as decluttering, you need to adopt a really mindful mindset and think how best to approach this. Because what we did recently, I had a whole decluttering bag, and decluttering, getting rid of it is actually really difficult if you want to do it sustainably, because you have to think like, okay, I can take that to recycling, but now I've got this item, I can't throw it on recycling because technically it's not recyclable, but there's also nothing wrong with it. So what do you do with it? Like for instance, I broke a mirror a few months ago. I had shattered glass everywhere. And it took me about, I think, 2 months to find someone who was doing mosaic so that I didn't just have to throw it on the rubbish pile because nobody wanted to recycle it.
Yeah. So it's about being creative in the way, like being mindful in the way, not just that you choose what you don't need, but also like once you've decided what it is that you no longer need, like how you like supposedly dispose of these items in as much mindful way. And then I think also, it's not about just getting rid of stuff. It's about adopting the mindset and establishing yourself in the mindset whereby you don't buy things that you don't need. I like this idea because I think, if you are looking mindfully at the things that you no longer need and where they can go, it's going to make you a lot more aware of the next time you buy something to be like, when I'm done with this, where is that going to go?
Exactly.
And, yeah, that's really powerful.
Tricky. Yeah.
And I think it's so important because, you know, in the, like you said earlier about the cycle of debt that people are in as well, and living with, you know, beyond our means often. And you know, obviously so much of debt is because of the like inequitable way in which our societies are kind of built right now, and like, you know, medical care and all these different things. But a lot of debt is like more based on like hedonism and this kind of thing of trying to keep up with the Joneses, of thinking that we're expected to have and do certain things even though we can't afford them.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of it is driven by that kind of thing. And it's really just, I don't know, at some point you just have to accept, well, some people are going to look at me funny because I don't own a car or whatever. And that's just the way that it is, you know, because getting into debt like that it's really not worth it. We're experiencing it now. We haven't had debt for, I think, like 10 years. And because we're all under lockdown here in South Africa and small businesses are struggling and everyone who can't work, I mean, it's really tough here at the moment. And we're in the fortunate position where my wife is working, but even if she wasn't, we wouldn't be as stressed as other people because we have no debt. So we've got some money in savings and whatever. So life wouldn't be nearly as stressful for us as it is for a lot of people.
No, it's a very difficult time, and Corona is also really kind of exposing the inequalities that are already so rife across the world. It's huge. But I wish I could pull to mind now, like the facts, you know, the figures about how indebted the world is and how mad that is. Is there, like, what sustains you in the work that you do? Do you ever kind of wish that you could go back and maybe, you know, stop doing the minimalist life? And when you're in those moments of doubt, what kind of pushes you forwards?
I don't ever wish to turn back, sometimes because, like, at the moment we're living in a furnished apartment, and so we have to deal with other people's stuff, and it drives me crazy because there's so many things. And we did a lifestyle experiment a couple of years ago where we moved into an empty apartment and we just got the basics. So we had like literally two cups, 2 bowls or whatever. And it was the happiest time ever. And this time around, we were actually going to do a different experiment and go ground living and not have any furniture at all. Because I'd seen this guy on YouTube who was living like this. I thought that was fascinating. But we found this apartment, and this location was just too sweet to pass up on. So, but no, I don't wish for anything. We often joke, like, we rented a car because we were living in the country for a couple of months, and I think we had the car just for a few months, but it was such a burden. Like, we don't miss those things at all. It's, I think we've been doing it for so long now. It's easy for us. You know, when you first starting out, it's probably not as easy.
Well, like anything, you know, we're creatures of habit, aren't we? So it is about getting used to. But I do love this idea of just kind of making ourselves feel lighter, less burdened with things. And obviously, like you say, you know, the less that we hold on to, the more money we have, the more time we have, and just generally the less stress as well. So how can people continue like learning from you? You have a blog, don't you?
Yes, I've got a blog. It's called Mostly Mindful. It's under my name though. I think you can search Mostly Mindful and it should come up.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah. And then obviously the TED Talk as well. But I update the blog on a weekly basis, and I have a newsletter. I'm a little bit of a hippie though, so I don't send out newsletters too often, but I'm going to get back into that. But yeah, the blog is probably the main place to look for me.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Angela.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much for reaching out.